So we got people throwing things at Trump supporters. That person has egg all over them. Aw. The racist has egg on her. Aw. I think the eggs are fine. Appropriate even. It washes out. If it destroys your clothes, too bad. Maybe you can, some of this money that you're sitting on, you can spend it. Good for the economy. But just please avoid glass. Okay? If you're gonna start hurling things at Trump supporters, I'm all favor of it, but nothing that's gonna hurt someone. Nothing that's gonna make someone lose an eye. So let's think it through together. There are things that are perfectly fine to throw at Trump supporters. Let's list them. Eggs, tomatoes, oranges, if they're peeled, and bananas if they're peeled as well. Sanitary liquids originating from supersoakers, spray bottles, or soap dispensers. Or rhetoric, although your mileage may vary on the rhetoric. How about things that should not be thrown at the Trump supporters? There's glass of any type, bottles, pets, especially ones with claws, wild animals, children, Muslims, migrant workers, or gavels, that is non-rhetorically. I am being a little bit lighthearted about this, but I want to be clear that I do think it's actually entirely appropriate. The people that are publicly supporting an open bigot, okay, they're going to a rally. Someone that wants to, that's openly stating he's going to, deport Mexicans en masse. He's calling them, rapists, and there's a big aspect of implicit white supremacism in the process, right? You have to make these people feel uncomfortable. You can't just say, that's a freedom of speech issue and just shrug it off and be like, well, some people are racist, some people aren't. No, it's not. That can't be allowed, right? There's has to be limits on freedom of speech and freedom of expression. I certainly think that people have a right to, gather. They have a right to freedom of assembly, but they have to deal with the consequences. And I think that a reasonable consequence of exercising that right is total ostracism. Okay, and that's up for society to do it. Okay, we have to get together and just go after these people as strenuously as possible. It's let's just keep your elbows down, which is a hockey term. It's Canadian for don't throw glass shards at heads full of rocks. But it goes back to what I'm saying about how Trump is normalizing the absurd. We got to a point where we've got somebody's running a major party, massive network coverage, and he's putting on rallies where people are throwing around all kinds of racial stereotypes. He's attacking judges based on their ethnicity. This is normal? No, it's not normal. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable speech. It's not acceptable discourse. But if he can convince you that it is acceptable discourse, then the country's done already, right? Once you've gotten to that point where this is okay, then there's no future. That's when you have to start over again, when you have to start tearing things down. It's one thing to stand back and passively let him win and then start fighting, right? It's another thing to show up at the rallies and actively support what he's saying. That just cannot be accepted as socially acceptable. It just cannot be seen that way. It can't be interpreted that way. You can't go to work with someone that way that's been there after that. You can't just go to lunch with someone. You can't just accept that as an okay idea. And the fact that he's running a major party isn't any kind of excuse for it. Right? That's the I'm following orders argument. Right? I was just following orders. No, that's not okay. You have an obligation to stand up against it. Which means standing up against it with an appropriate and proportional response. And tomatoes and eggs, oranges if they're peeled, Bananas, not apples. Apples are too hard. Watermelons, if they're open, grapefruits. This is within the bounds of acceptable expression, and it's within the bounds of acceptable consequence. Boycotting businesses is within those bounds. Termination of employment, social ostracism. But glass is, you hurt somebody when you throw glass at them. You hurt somebody when you throw Molotovs at them, right? That goes beyond an appropriate expression of disgust, right? You're supporting garbage politics. Let's turn you into garbage, right? You deserve to be treated like garbage if you're going to support garbage politics. And it's not okay. It's not all relative. There's limits. But that's expression. That's protest, right? Cutting somebody's eye out or, leaving them with a scar. It's not. That's not acceptable expression. So that's my view. Feel free to hang out and toss tomatoes. I think that's acceptable. In fact, I would encourage it. But don't throw glass. Don't do anything that could actively hurt somebody. Because then, the media uses property damage and violence interchangeably, right? It's apparently slashing somebody's tires is violent. I don't really know where that came from. Okay, but throwing a Molotov cocktail at somebody or a bottle of Pepsi or whatever, that is violent. You can hurt somebody like that. Okay, so I don't think that egging someone or pieing someone or tomatoing someone, I don't think that's violent. Although you should see, the problem with eggs and nuts and chocolate is that there's this possibility of allergies, right? And so, maybe eggs aren't the best idea either. But tomatoes, anyways, ketchup. Those should be. I think it's a perfectly reasonable approach. It should be actively encouraged, but nothing that could break skin or damage organs or anything of the sort. Please.